Imagine a moment that never fully arrives, a glance that holds a heartbeat longer than expected, a breath that pauses just before words are spoken, a shift in proximity that is barely perceptible, yet somehow everything changes. These are the moments that linger in memory long after they have passed, not because anything dramatic occurred, but because something almost did. The human mind is wired to register what is incomplete, what is uncertain, what hovers on the edge of happening. And in that space between intention and action, between possibility and reality, something far more powerful than any grand gesture takes root. This is the paradox of attraction and connection. The moments that shape how others experience us are often not the ones where we do the most, but the ones where we allow the most to build beneath the surface. The Stoic philosophers understood something about this that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. True presence is not about doing more. It is about being more fully where you are, allowing the natural rhythms of human connection to unfold without forcing them. The philosopher Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, but the reverse is also true. We connect more deeply in anticipation than in action. The nervous system responds to anticipation with a cascade of neurochemical activity that shapes how we experience the world. Dopamine, often described as the brain's reward chemical, is released not only when we experience pleasure, but perhaps even more powerfully when we anticipate it. Research has shown that the anticipation of a future reward can often be more gratifying than the experience of the reward itself. This is not a quirk of human psychology. It is a fundamental feature of how the brain is wired. When we anticipate something meaningful, the brain produces dopamine, creating feelings of excitement, motivation, and engagement. This dopamine release often peaks before the moment even happens, meaning the build-up, the pause, the almost, is where emotional intensity truly forms. The mind leans into the uncertainty, becoming more engaged, more curious, more present. And in that state of heightened awareness, connection deepens. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not be disturbed by events, but by our judgments about them. When we rush through moments, when we fill every silence with words and every pause with action, we rob ourselves of the space where real connection can emerge. Anticipation is not waiting. It is engagement. It is the mind becoming involved in what might happen next, and that involvement is the foundation of memorable interaction. The body, too, plays a role that is often overlooked. Human skin is innervated by a class of sensory nerve fibers known as C-tactile afferents, which respond specifically to gentle, caress-like touch. These nerves are connected to brain regions associated with emotion and social bonding, including the insular cortex and the medial prefrontal cortex. When touch is slow and intentional, it activates what researchers call a stealth emotional processing system. The brain does not simply register the sensation. It interprets it as meaningful, associating it with trust, closeness, and emotional significance. This is why a gentle, well-timed gesture can feel far more powerful than something rushed or intense. The body is not equally sensitive everywhere, but the interpretation of touch is what transforms something physical into something deeply psychological. The Stoics understood that our perceptions shape our reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When we approach connection with awareness, when we allow moments to unfold gradually, we dye our interactions with the colors of presence and meaning. The brain is highly sensitive to emotional tone. If energy feels calm and steady, even small gestures carry weight. If it feels scattered or forced, even bigger actions lose impact. The Polyvagal Theory, developed by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, offers a framework for understanding how safety and connection are mediated by the nervous system. The theory proposes that a state of safety is mediated by a process called neuroception, where the nervous system continuously evaluates the environment for cues of safety or danger. These cues are communicated interpersonally through facial expression, tone of voice, and body posture. When safety is sensed, the ventral vagal system is activated, allowing for calm, openness, and social engagement. This is where presence becomes powerful. When we are fully present, when our attention is not divided, when we are not trying to impress or overthink, we create a sense of safety, and safety is what allows emotional openness. The writer Erich Fromm, whose work on love and connection remains influential, argued that love is an art that requires discipline, focus, and patience. It is not something that happens to us. It is something we cultivate through presence and intention. When we rush, we kill the very thing we are trying to build. When we slow down, we create the conditions for something real to grow. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. You are sitting close to someone you feel comfortable with. The conversation flows easily. There is warmth, a sense of ease, nothing forced. Then, there is a subtle shift in distance. Not obvious, not dramatic, just enough for the mind to register. Suddenly, awareness heightens. Breathing patterns change. The presence of the other person becomes more vivid. The space between you feels charged. That small shift alone activates something deeper within the mind. This is where many people misunderstand attraction. They assume it is about doing more, when in reality it is about recognizing what is already unfolding beneath the surface. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not seek to have events happen as we wish, but to wish them to happen as they do happen. When we allow moments to unfold naturally, we align ourselves with the rhythm of connection. We stop trying to control the outcome and start experiencing the process. There is a reason certain moments feel unforgettable. It is not because of what happened, but because of what almost happened. The brain responds more strongly to anticipation than to the action itself. Psychological research on the reward system shows that when we anticipate something, dopamine is released, creating feelings of pleasure and motivation. This release often peaks before the moment even happens. The build-up, the pause, the almost is where emotional intensity truly forms. When something happens too fast, the brain does not have time to process it. There is no build-up, no emotional layering. It simply passes by. But when a moment unfolds gradually, the brain begins collecting details. Breathing patterns, subtle posture changes, the warmth of proximity, even silence takes on meaning. Suddenly, something simple becomes deeply significant. The Stoics understood that true power is not found in force, but in stillness. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nowhere is quieter or freer from trouble than one's own soul. When we are at peace within ourselves, we project that peace outward, and peace is magnetic. Now, let us make this practical. Understanding is important, but application is where transformation happens. First, pay attention to your pace. Most people rush without realizing it, speaking quickly, moving quickly, reacting quickly. But when you naturally slow down, everything shifts. Next time you are in a calm interaction, notice your breathing. Let it settle. Allow pauses instead of feeling every silence. Maintain soft, relaxed eye contact without forcing it. You will begin to notice a change in the emotional atmosphere. Second, focus on presence. This is powerful. People can sense when your attention is divided, and they can also feel when you are fully there. Not trying to impress, not overthinking, just present. That kind of presence creates a sense of safety, and safety is what allows emotional openness. The philosopher Seneca wrote that nothing is as destructive to inner peace as depending on what is not within our control. When you are fully present, you are not depending on the outcome. You are simply experiencing the moment, and that experience is what others remember. There is a deeper layer to this. What makes a moment powerful is not just the action, but the meaning the brain assigns to it. Beneath everything, the mind is quietly asking, is this safe? Does this matter? When both answers are yes, something opens naturally without force. This is why certain gestures feel different. The neck, jawline, and the space just behind the ear are particularly sensitive because the nerves lie closer to the surface. Even the lightest touch in these areas can feel intensified, not due to pressure, but because of how quickly the sensation reaches the brain. The response is not just physical. The brain instantly attaches emotional meaning to that sensation. It connects it with trust, closeness, and something personal, rather than casual. That is why a gentle, well-timed moment can feel far more powerful than something rushed or intense. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not be upset by what we do not have, but rejoice in what we do. When we are fully present in a moment, we are rejoicing in what is, rather than worrying about what might be. None of this works without the right internal state. You cannot fake calm presence. Your body always communicates the truth. So how do you develop it? Start with awareness. Your breathing, posture, and pace. When your breath slows, your nervous system follows. Your movements become smoother, more intentional, and people can feel that steadiness. It does not demand attention, but it naturally draws it. I once spoke with a man in his early 60s who felt disconnected from attraction entirely. He believed those moments were behind him. But the issue was not age, it was awareness. He had been rushing through interactions, focused on saying the right things. So we tried something simple. Slow down, breathe, allow pauses, maintain relaxed eye contact. Later, he told me, for the first time in years, I felt the moment had weight. That is the shift, not technique, awareness. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that we have power over our minds, not outside events. When you are present, you are exercising that power. You are not letting anxiety or urgency control you. You are choosing to be where you are. Another key layer is emotional presence. The brain does not just respond to physical closeness, it responds to attention. When someone feels truly seen, it creates a powerful emotional experience. Even small gestures, a glance, a pause, become meaningful when they come from genuine presence. When emotional awareness combines with physical sensitivity, the brain interprets the moment as significant, not because of what is happening, but because of how it feels. The Stoics understood that true connection is not about possession. It is about recognition. Seneca wrote that no good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it. When we are present with someone, we are sharing something far more valuable than words. We are sharing our attention, our awareness, our humanity. And that is what creates lasting connection. Real connection happens when multiple signals align. Touch, proximity, warmth, presence, and timing. When these elements come together naturally, the brain interprets the moment as meaningful, something worth remembering. That is why subtlety often creates more impact than intensity. Subtle moments invite the mind to engage, to imagine, to feel. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we should be silent as to services we have rendered, but speak of favors we have received. When we are present, we are not performing. We are simply receiving the moment as it is. And that receptivity is what allows connection to flourish. If you have ever been close to someone, barely even speaking, yet the moment felt intense, almost electric, you have experienced this phenomenon. It was not about what was done. It was about what was allowed to build. A glance, a pause, a breath shared a little too closely. You could not quite explain it, but you felt it. That is the power of anticipation. That is the quiet power of presence. And it is available to anyone willing to slow down, to pay attention, and to let moments unfold naturally. The most powerful part of attraction is not what you do, but what you allow to build. Connection happens in the pauses, the quiet awareness, the moments where nothing obvious is happening, but everything is being felt. Once you begin to notice this, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you cannot help but live it.